Well, we're going to focus on the biggest story of the day, viewers, as it comes out of Maharashtra today on India Upfront. Viewers, Shiv Sena MP and Uddhav Thackeray's closest aide, Sanjay Raut, has been sent to 3-day ED custody in the multi-crore Patra Chawl redevelopment case. Now, in a nutshell, viewers, this case is really about how a very busy chawl with lower middle class people have been essentially cheated. That's what the central agency, the Enforcement Directorate, will tell you. They got cheated because the rights to develop this particular chawl so that these nearly 700 families could live a better life were in some way or the other, viewers, hypothecated on the back of kickbacks. None of these people actually got a house. Some others today, some fat cats, some important people managed to usurp this particular chawl, divert money away from it and line their own pockets. The central agency says Sanjay Raut is one of them. It will now get to grill Sanjay Raut till August 4 after winning a favorable order from one of the lower courts. The ED in its remand application said that Sanjay Raut benefited from money that was made by defrauding the Maharashtra Housing Development Authority and all its shareholders, in a manner of speaking. A builder allegedly close to Sanjay Raut, instead of developing flats for 672 poor families displaced from Patra Chawl, sold off that land to private builders. In this fraud, the ED alleges 112 crores were made by Praveen Raut, of which 1 crore made its way to Sanjay Raut. At least as of now, that's what the ED claims. ED also informed the court that Sanjay Raut used the proceeds of crime to buy several plots in Alibag and a flat in Bandra. All these are facts as they are being claimed by the Enforcement Directorate before the court today during the remand hearing. ED initially sought 8-day custody of Raut, making serious charges not just of getting financial benefits but also being on a retainer of 2 lakh rupees per month of Praveen Raut, who is the alleged kingpin of this entire scam. The agency also said that Raut and family's trips were funded by Praveen. It was some sort of a quid pro quo. They say that this Praveen Raut is nothing but a laundering front for the Sena Member of Parliament. Sanjay Raut, on his part, blamed the entire investigation on the change in government. He told the court that an old complaint was suspiciously resurrected at a time when his party was involved in elections to the post of President and Vice President of India so as to pressure him. He even pleaded on medical grounds, but all came to naught. He wanted concessions. He didn't want to be arrested. Viewers, even as the pressure built up, the Shiv Sena made it clear that they were standing behind Raut. Uddhav Thackeray first met the Samna editor's family and then made an impassioned speech about standing with his brother. Those are some of the pictures from earlier in the day. Using the dialogue of the hit film Pushpa, he reiterated that like a real Shiv Sainik, Sanjay Raut jhukega nahi. This was in a live address today. The arrest of Sanjay Raut, however, has triggered strong reactions from the opposition, which has alleged misuse of central probe agencies by the BJP, even as Sainiks hit the streets across Maharashtra. Shiv Sena, on its part, also tabled a notice for suspension of business in the Rajya Sabha, alleging an attempt to silence the opposition using the Enforcement Directorate. Now, viewers, the charges have been flying thick and fast. Here's a sample of the debate, which is rancorous. Listen in.
We have been raising this issue of misuse of central agencies like ED, IT and CBI by the government against political opponents for the past 2 weeks. It was very obvious that Mr. Sanjay Raut was speaking against BJP, was speaking against the central government. So obviously he was being targeted. He is definitely paying the price for it. And they had already started all kinds of harassment tactics against him when this entire natak was being enacted in Maharashtra.
देखिए जितनी भी सेंट्रल इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग एजेंसी है तो वो इंडिपेंडेंटली काम करती है। अगर किसी के खिलाफ उन्हें कुछ सबूत मिल गए तो समझ सकते हैं, हिरासत में लेते हैं। अब वो उनका काम कर रही है और ये अक्सर फैशन हो गई है। अगर विरोधी पक्ष के हैं तो आप यही बात करेंगे कि हमको बताया जा रहा है। अगर आप बेगुनाह है, आपको डरने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है।
What we will do, I cannot say, but I can say that we are very concerned about the misuse of the ED. Government institutions are not there to serve political purposes. They should be doing a particular job. We've got an extraordinarily selective targeting of opposition people. And I find this quite unacceptable because we are a country where democracy is a value in itself and should be preserved. Opposition voices should not be stifled for one reason or another.
ईडी जांच कर रही है और उनके आप बॉडी लैंग्वेज देखिए, उससे लगता नहीं है किस तरह से मफलर निकाल करके ये सब कर रहे हैं और इस तरह से कह रहे हैं कि हाँ मैं शिवसेना नहीं छोड़ूंगा। मानो ये इसलिए दबाव बन रहा है। ये वो पूरी तरह से दोषी है और ये जांच आज से नहीं चल रही है, लंबे समय से जांच चल रही है। मेरे ख्याल में कोई भी जांच एजेंसी जब किसी को हिरासत में गिरफ्तार करती है तो कुछ ना कुछ होता है।
Well, as you heard, viewers, the Shiv Sena comes out and claims vendetta on the part of the Enforcement Directorate, saying that the government is going after political opponents. But there is one question that everyone is finding hard to answer. And I'm going to pose this question. Why did Sanjay Raut's wife allegedly transfer some of the alleged kickbacks to the kingpin's wife after the ED began its probe? Now, viewers, this question is proving to be a thorn in the flesh of the opposition. And let's open this up. Let's hit the debate, viewers, on India Upfront tonight. Let's ask some questions. The Shiv Sena is represented by Yogi Gade. Also, this evening by Chandrasekhar Jha. There's Tehseen Poonawala, whose party ably supported the Aghadi government. There's Dr. Ranganathan and Sanju Verma, the national spokesperson of the BJP. Mr. Gade, I want to begin by asking you this question, and it's a simple question. There's no guile here. I only want to understand from you, why is it that Sanjay Raut's wife allegedly transfers some of the alleged money she receives from the kingpin's wife right after the ED begins to probe? What does this tell you, Mr. Gade?
Yes. Firstly, we should understand why is the national agencies like the ED only behind opposition party leaders. Firstly. Second, when the Shiv Sena was with the BJP during 2014 to 2019, that time no Shiv Sena leaders got ED notices. It is only after they went with the Mahavikas Aghadi, MLAs started getting ED notices. And most of the MLAs who got ED notices are with the BJP right now in the ruling government. So if one politician enters the BJP, they become holy. They get notices when they are in the opposition. This is very dangerous for the democracy. I am a youth. When I was 21 in 2014, I voted for the BJP government. In 2019 also I voted. I didn't vote for this one-way change, you know. If you get to see, it is very dangerous for the democracy. When the youth of this country, the good people who want to come into politics, when they are watching this, do you think they will even want to enter politics? This is really not healthy for a democracy.
Mr. Gade, that's all right. You can give us a lecture on the Enforcement Directorate, its one-sidedness. You might even be right. I'm not here to argue the ED's case. I'm only here to ask you the question that strikes as the oddest to me. So I want to ask you, there is an alleged kingpin of a scam. He has a wife. That wife, at some instance, allegedly gives money to Sanjay Raut's wife. You see what I mean? Then suddenly, when the ED starts looking into this affair, Sanjay Raut's wife decides, don't like the smell of this money, let me return it to the kingpin's wife. Now, can you explain, Mr. Gade, why suddenly this money became so odious? What was it about this money that became, to use another metaphor, a hot potato that she could not, spend? Now, what happened here, Mr. Gade? Please answer this very straightforward question, because I find it quite astounding. I'm not getting answers. I've been asking questions.
Yes.
A lot of people, they just don't answer. They give me this huge thing about the ED. So can you explain? The money was okay at one point. Then the ED steps in. The money becomes, I don't know what to say. It becomes smelly, stinky. Why? What happened?
Yes, Rahul sir, I really appreciate, as you are a very fair journalist and you give chances to everybody. And I want to tell you this. Last year, there is a BJP MP from Sangli. He was quoted saying, I'm in the BJP. I don't need to feel scared of the ED. There is a former Congress leader who has come.
I'm talking about the money.
Now, who has come into the
BJP. No, can you please, one second. Mr. Gade, yes,
let me finish.
we will talk about the ED's pathological aversion, in your words, to go after BJP leaders, and there might even be more than a ring of truth. Now, or a whiff of truth, since I want to continue the metaphor. But what was it about the smell of this money that so repelled Sanjay Raut's wife that she decided to return it to an alleged kingpin's wife? Can you explain this to me? Get to the answer.
Yes, I will get to the answer, but please don't interrupt, because I'm not interrupting when you are talking.
Sir, you run down the clock. Now, if you want to do that, you just tell me. I want to run down the clock. I want to talk about everything else except for the smell of this money. You see, if you agree, then I will let you answer. If you don't,
answer your question,
then I won't let you answer.
When all political leaders get the ED notices.
Yes. Okay. So when they all get the ED notices, they start returning the money. Some leave it in their cars, some leave it in a friend's house, and then say, not mine, not mine, not mine. As if saying it 3 times will make everyone believe it. Okay, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting theory. You get an ED notice and you leave the money. It suddenly starts stinking. Okay, Dr. Ranganathan, before I bring in Sanju Verma, I want to bring you in, Dr. Ranganathan. Look, I've seen a lot of money now unclaimed, lying about casually. Unfortunately, it's never been in my home. No one ever leaves it in my house, neither has it been left in your house, but somehow all other people's homes become safe houses for unclaimed money. Why is this? Can you explain?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. Look, are you accusing, to paraphrase Pompeo, Caesar's wife, are you accusing Raut's wife to not be above suspicion?
Well, sir.
No, but the fact of the matter is that the only way now for Sanjay Raut to escape prison is frankly to join the BJP. He could also join the Congress and play the victim card like Sonia Gandhi or Chidambaram, but the Congress wouldn't accept him, as the scam amount is only 1,000 crores. भाई कांग्रेस की भी कोई नाम है, कोई इज्जत है, ऐसे थोड़ी ना किसी ने 1,000 crore का स्कैम कर दिया कांग्रेस ज्वाइन कर लेगा. No, but Rahul, to be serious, I have said this before and I say it again. Every CBI or ED raid carries the baggage of being politically motivated, even if it is not, and frankly, it might not be politically motivated. But the fact of the matter is that the investigative agencies are not apolitical or independent. They should be. The BJP, Mr. Arun Jaitley, the late Mr. Jaitley, promised that in 2011, that we will make the CBI and ED independent. But sadly, they remain parrots like they did in the UPA time. And when you domesticate a parrot, it finds its favorite shoulder. And right now, the favorite shoulder is of Mr. Modi. Second, the fact of the matter is that if the raided are politicians, they simply join the BJP. I don't need to give the examples time and again. But you know, in Bengal, in Karnataka, and in all other places where the politicians are threatened, they simply join the BJP और उनके सारे crimes धुल जाते हैं. This case, this present case, to me at least, is an open and shut case of a scam that is even, according to me, greater than 1,000 crores. And as you correctly put it, a hot potato. The proceeds of this crime are like the hot potato. They are being swapped from one Pompia to another. Pardon the pun. At the fact of the matter, can I also give you the data now? Because this also has to be answered by the ruling dispensation. In the last 10 years, and this is from the affidavit presented before the Supreme Court, in the last 10 years, ED has raided 1,710 times. Do you know the conviction rate? It's 0.5%. So somebody has to answer this and also answer how many of those 1,700 raids that were 1,360 of them conducted under the BJP dispensation were against BJP politicians.
Okay, now, Dr. Ranganathan, as much as I want to smile and encourage your taunt at the Congress, the 1,000 crore taunt, you see, I cannot do so. I have to disagree with you vehemently, even if it means that I am doing so for absolutely subjective reasons. Now, I'll tell you why. Because there's a vasuli of another type that has been going on. You see, the Congress is on a defamation filing spree. 1,000 crore suit can land on my door. So I have to vehemently disagree with you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan. The Congress only takes those who are qualified into its party. They don't take scamsters. They don't fix a price, entry-level price. There is no. So please, I have to be very, very clear about this. Doctor, I vehemently disagree, and I hope Jairam Ramesh has noted my vehement disagreement. I do not agree with this slander. So please, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, don't take me to court. I already have enough court cases against me. I've got wise to this Vasuli racket. I want to open this up. I want to bring in Sanju Verma now. Sanju Verma, you see, there is a reason here to suspect that maybe the Enforcement Directorate is going out on a limb to trouble Sanjay Raut. How do you respond to Yogi Gade?
Rahul, first and foremost, let me make this very clear that the initial FIR against Praveen Raut, against Guru Ashish Construction, which is the key entity which is at the core of this entire debate. This was filed by MADA in 2007. The Economic Offences Wing actually arrested Sarang Vadhavan, Rakesh Vadhavan and Praveen Raut in 2020 when it was the Uddhav Thackeray-led government in Maharashtra in power, not the BJP. The Economic Offences Wing in turn told the Enforcement Directorate that this entire scam is not about a few hundred crores, but it could run into several thousand crores. PMC Bank is also in question because the Vadhavans are the common entities who have a stake in Guru Ashish Construction, are close buddies of Praveen Raut and Sanjay Raut, and were also the promoters of PMC. It is then that the Enforcement Directorate stepped in. And with no offense to Anand Ranganathan, I just want to say one thing. For everybody who comes on debate after debate and gives a bhashan to the BJP that the Enforcement Directorate has a strike rate of 0.5%, those people, including Mr. Ranganathan, need to know that in the last 8 years of Modi government, Enforcement Directorate has confiscated, attached assets worth 99,356 crores. Under the entire Congress regime, only 5,346 crores were confiscated. And mind you, Rahul, before people jump about Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi and Mehul Chokshi, more than 22,000 crores which is owed by these three scamsters has been monetized and returned to banks. Because at the end of the day, it is taxpayers like you and me who suffer if a scamster is not caught.
Okay.
So please start. Please, Rahul, you gave enough time to the others. Indulge me for 30 seconds more. So, for everybody to sit here and give a bhashan about how the CBI is a caged parrot, how the ED is a caged parrot, let me tell you one more thing, Rahul Shivshankar. In the 10 years of Manmohan Singh government rule, not a single conviction happened under ED or CBI's probe. And do you know how many convictions have happened? I'm talking of convictions. 23 convictions.
Madam, can I ask you then?
8 prosecutions.
Okay,
Rahul,
follow-up question.
You don't interrupt the other. Can I take 20 seconds more? 888 prosecutions by the ED, In last 8 years of Modi government,
Okay.
only 100.
We have those statistics, ma'am. They're running on the screen. But that doesn't take away from the abysmally low conviction rate. And,
No,
I'm
so what
putting
is the
your...
question to
Okay,
me?
1 second, madam. I'm putting your entire claim to test. We have opened our call-in lines because I want to hear from our viewers tonight. After these recent cash seizures, we've seen mountains of cash coming out of associates of Patra Chatterjee in Bengal. We've seen them coming now out of 3 MLAs in Jharkhand. There's cash everywhere. So let's ask our viewers what they think. Has the ED redeemed its image in their eyes? We'll come to that because you're talking about recoveries, Sanju Verma, so we'll test that against what our viewers believe. But I want to ask you a simple question, and this is a question that I must put to you, and I will go back to the Shiv Sena. I'm not happy with their response. Let me put that on record. And also, Tehseen, please listen. Will the ED pursue cases now registered against 3 Sena members, Pratap Sarnaik, Bhavna Gauli, Yamini Jadhav, with as much alacrity as they have pursued the case against Mr. Raut? This is a question, Sanju Verma, that you need to answer because these 3 people have now suddenly switched sides and are with the Shinde camp.
I am very glad you asked me this question, Rahul. And without any ifs or buts, I will not shove things under the carpet. These 3 people, including Yashwant Jadhav, who is being probed by the ED, until he resigned, he was, mind you, the standing committee chairman of BMC, which is a very powerful position.
Yes.
The Modi government has zero tolerance for corruption. I remember when, the Yes Bank fiasco happened, people said, oh, the promoters of Yes Bank are very close to BJP top brass.
Okay.
He ensured that Rana Kapoor went to jail. When K.M. Ishwarappa's name came up, he said, that he's the 10% commission man or 20% commission man. An investigation against him.
So you're going to continue. You're going to continue. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay. Sanju Verma says zero tolerance for corruption. Okay. Let's open this up further. Let me get in Tehseen Poonawala. Tehseen Poonawala. Let's talk a little bit about. 1 minute, madam. 1 second. Anil Deshmukh, I'll bring you in. We are not running away from this debate. Corruption is an issue that Times Now never runs away from. Let me tell you. I want to bring in, and I'll bring you, I also bring in Dr. Ranganathan. I'll just bring them. I'll just have a first opening statement from everyone. Tehseen Poonawala, I want to ask you. You know, the previous speaker, Yogi Gade, from your side of the fence, has said that the ED has been on a witch hunt ever since we came to power. That is, the Shiv Sena under Uddhav Thackeray came to power. It's gone completely ballistic. It's being used as a cat's paw. Now, one of the people that had to quit office was Anil Deshmukh. As you know, Vasuli racket is what it was called, Vasuli Gate. Now, this is what the court said on March 18, 2022, so not so very long back. There is no reasonable explanation why there was a deviation from the guidelines issued by the Honorable Supreme Court while affecting transfers and postings during the tenure of the applicant. Prima facie, there is evidence to indicate that the applicant had exercised undue influence over the transfers and postings of police officials. This is Special Judge R.K. Rokade. He also says there is no reasonable explanation on the part of the applicant in respect of donations received through shell companies. Statement of the applicant is evasive on this aspect, adding that it can be said that a prima facie case can be made out to show that Deshmukh is actively involved in money laundering. Tehseen Poonawala, this is the court coming up, prima facie, with this written remark.
Namaskar, Rahul. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Namaskar to all my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. Rahul, the Enforcement Directorate has become a recruitment agency for the Bharatiya Janata Party. And as Dr. Ranganathan, my fellow panelists, very eruditely put it, should Sanjay Raut or Ms. Kavli, now that she joined the BJP, go ahead with the BJP, well, the recruitment agency would have done its job. So more than a parrot, it's now a recruitment agency. So therefore, I have renamed the EDBD, Bajrang Dal. It's an arm of the Bharatiya Janata Party. But let's come to statistics and data, because like Dr. Ranganathan, I'm a man of science and a man of data. Dr. Ranganathan raised very valid point. Of the number of raids, how many were on the opposition, how many were on the BJP MPs and MLAs? 905 raids on opposition MPs, MLAs, and people associated with them. 11 11 on those associated with the BJP. 905 to 11. Yes, Sanju Verma ji is absolutely right. 23 convictions happened during Modi ji's time. But what she forgets to add to the viewers of Times Now is all of those convictions, save one, were charge sheets filed during the UPA era that have been convicted. Now, 0.5% is the data that you've been putting out. Now, Sanju Verma cancels that and she says, look, we've got 1 lakh crore that we've seized. But this 1 lakh crore is quite frankly means nothing. It's like Anand's team Baturas, which I cannot access to sitting on Zoom or on Skype until the conviction does not happen, until I'm in front of the thali. So if the conviction doesn't happen, which is 0.5%, you may seize 10 lakh crores. You will eventually have to return it. You're not taking that money home. Now, what has been seized from Sanjay Raut before I end? Why I say it's a recruitment agency, 11,50,000 rupees. Less than the sunglasses, pens and clothes that Mr. Modi wears on one outing has been seized from his house. 1 crore rupees is the charge on Sanjay Raut. Whatever it is, he will put up his defense in court. But I reiterate, the Enforcement Directorate, the recruitment agency for the Bharatiya Janata Party.
No, you're a man of science, Mr. Poonawala, but I hope it's not the science of obfuscation. So let me ask you the question once again. And let me ask it to you directly. Look, you said that the ED goes out on a witch hunt, and we have 4 viewers, Mr. Patnaik, Mr. Mihir, Mr. Rajendra, and Mr. Gopinath. They're all waiting, and I'm going to bring them in. But I want to ask you, Mr. Poonawala, you didn't answer my question. The ED goes after Patra Chatterjee. In your words, it's a witch hunt. He's sacked by his party. The ED then investigates Satyendra Jain. He's in hospital. The court says to another court, don't consider the report that has been now prepared by the hospital because prima facie it appears that the report is not right, that the man is sitting in hospital pretending to be sick when perhaps he may not be. So at least when it comes to the question of bail, don't go by that report. Then you have Mr. Deshmukh, who I referred to. The Shiv Sena quickly drops him like a hot potato, to continue the metaphor. Now, why is this the case? If the ED is, as you say, the Bajrang Dal extension, very quickly. Very quickly.
It may be. And for all the 3 cases you may put, may have indulged in alleged corruption. But the court said, Rahul, and you covered this, that Vyapam, there is corruption, ED must investigate. How many days on Shivraj Singh Chauhan?
I'm asking you, is the ED, look, the ED might be selective. It might be selective. Yes, I agree with you, it might be selective. But is it right now shooting in the dark? I can't say that anymore with any conviction. Dr. Ranganathan, very quickly, before I bring in the 4 viewers, Mr. Patnaik, Mihir, Rajendra, and Gopinath, they're all connected to us. Yes. I'll come to you, madam. Give me 30 seconds.
Yes, Rahul.
You'll have all the chance. Yes.
Yes, Rahul, just please allow me a minute, because 2 panelists here, esteemed panelists, took my name, so I need to rebut it. For the critics of the government, like when I am criticizing the government or when Tehseen is, one can be uncharitable and maybe even rude and say, hum bhashan de rahe hain, but the facts are there for all to see. Even you have reiterated those facts. And the facts are, the system is obviously rotten if a premier investigative agency manages a conviction rate of only 0.5%. I'm not concerned with whichever government it is under. I'm concerned with the bare fact. You cannot refute the fact by bringing in another data, which is not related to this. Number 2, and if the FIR was filed in 2007, you had from 2014 to 2019 a BJP Shiv Sena alliance government. Why wasn't Sanjay Raut raided then?
Why wasn't he raided?
As Tehseen says, final point, as Tehseen says, why is it that only 2 BJP politicians out of 100 politicians raided by the ED turn out to be BJP politicians, 2 out of 100. So the system is rotten, let's accept it.
There's data there, but there are several questions. What alleged quid pro quo led the prime accused to transfer rupees 1.6 crores to Sanjay Raut? Why is it that Sanjay Raut received rupees 2 lakhs from scam kingpin every month in 2010 and 2011? I'll be putting those questions out. Those are specifics, viewers. Mr. Patnaik calling in from Odisha. Go ahead, Mr. Patnaik. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Rahul, and all the panelists. I don't understand how these leaders sit here and don't agree to what is happening actually. Actually, it should be agreed, no?
Yes,
it is with proofs, with evidences, everything is going on, and shamelessly people just talk that why he has done, why I should not do.
Okay, well, that's an important point. That's one of our viewers. That's what he thinks. Mr. Mihir calling in from Kolkata. Mr. Mihir, has the ED redeemed its image? Is it a credible investigative agency?
Good evening, Mr. Shivshankar.
Good evening, sir.
Why I am telling Shivshankar, why I am not telling the first name, that I will come later. See, let me introduce myself. I am son-in-law of the great person who is a political friend of Bharat Ratna, our ex-president of India, Pranab Mukherjee. And at the time of his last moment, he has said that on principally he has supported Congress, but practically Congress has looted our country.
Okay.
And today they cannot face the practically what happening today.
Okay. So the ED is right in trying to expose the skeletons. Okay, I'll move on. Rajendra calling in from Faridabad. Mr. Rajendra, go ahead, sir.
Of all the people, tonight I find the otherwise articulate Mr. Anand Ranganathan getting into whataboutery.
Oh, whataboutery.
The police catches hold of a man with a knife and blood on his hand. And that time he says, what about the other murders? What about this? Today, let us be on the subject.
Okay.
Sanjay Raut has been caught. An avalanche of money and property has been found in West Bengal.
Okay.
Whataboutery will not lead us to anywhere today.
Whataboutery is not going to work. Three callers supporting the ED and its actions. Sanju Verma may have made an impression on our viewers. Mr. Gopinath calling. Mr. Gopinath, yes, go ahead, sir, with your views this evening.
Good evening, Rahul.
Good evening, sir.
I got only two things. Why there is no time frame is being fixed by ED
yes.
to see that the people is being get arrested, put in jail. They go bail or they'll go to the doctors and they'll get out hospitalized or they'll ransack the country.
Yes.
You have the news circulated in India. They're saying this.
So you don't have a problem with the raids, but you certainly want action in a time-bound manner. That's what you're saying.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Of course, yes.
Mr. Gopinath, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Viewers, you've heard 4 people calling in, and they've said that they don't think that the ED acts at the behest of anyone, but certainly they would want them to up their ability to nail the person they've gone after. Now, that is an important distinction to be made. Sanju Verma, very quickly, you wanted to come in, you wanted to respond to Dr. Ranganathan and Tehseen Poonawalla in particular. Yes, you've got yourself on mute, Ms. Verma. Go ahead.
No, I'm not on mute.
Okay,
am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible now. Go ahead.
Okay. Rahul, let me be very clear about one thing. I think one very important suggestion which came across from one of the viewers was that there needs to be a time-bound probe, and I'm sure that is a feedback that we are taking on board. I just want to say one very important thing to your viewers, though I think your viewers are much smarter than everybody on the panel, because one of the viewers called out the whataboutery of one of the panelists here. I will not get into that. I just want to say one thing. Do you remember last week on your show when we had Patra Chawl as the topic of discussion? Mr. Ranganathan started doubting the bona fides of ED. Today, when the topic of discussion is corruption by Sanjay Raut and his associates, Mr. Ranganathan tries to rationalize corruption by again doubting the bona fides of Enforcement Directorate and Tehseen Poonawalla. Let me remind you, Rahul Gandhi out on bail, Sonia Gandhi out on bail, Karti Chidambaram out on bail, P. Chidambaram out on bail, Nalini Chidambaram out on bail. You represent these people on TV every second day, and you have the audacity to come here and question the bona fides of the ED. 10 seconds more, Rahul. Your viewers need to know that on July 27, 2002, in a historic judgment, the Supreme Court upheld the powers under the PMLA Act by the Enforcement Directorate. And they said Enforcement Directorate has quo voto powers to search, seize assets, and make arrests. This is the Supreme Court of India. So what Anand Ranganathan says, what Mr. Gade says, what Sanju Verma says, what Rahul Shivshankar says, or Tehseen Poonawalla says, does not matter. Supreme Court has said that the Enforcement Directorate is doing a great job.
Okay. Supreme Court says it, so let's all let's all end the debate. Okay, that's what Sanju Verma is saying. In a nutshell, Dr. Ranganathan, quick response. I want to bring in the other Shiv Sainik also, Chandrasekhar Jha, and some more viewers tonight. Yes.
Yes, Rahul, very quickly, 2 points. Let us all try and be rational and logical and unbiased. I know it might be difficult for some. Why on earth would I say ED is impartial if it is under the control of a bona fide government? On what basis will I say that ED, which is and CBI that are controlled and not independent, are independent? Am I mad? Why would I say that? I know a political party or its representative would like to believe that the case, but then the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Look at the conviction rate, 0.5%. Can you defy that? Are you saying that data is wrong? And number two, look at, stop interrupting. Stop interrupting. I didn't interrupt you. Don't be rude.
One at a time. Let him make his points. You can respond. You can respond,
Rahul,
Sanju
all through
Verma,
this
please.
debate.
Sanju Verma, don't lose it. Let him finish his second point and you can respond. I'll allow you to respond.
You know, this kind of back office aggression doesn't help anyone. Let's be silent. Let's listen to everyone. Now, final point. Rahul,
okay,
did the Supreme Court say that the ED is independent? Did the Supreme Court say that the ED is independent? Show me that quote. Rahul, can I please have my say? I did not interrupt anyone.
Sanju Verma, let him finish, please. Let him finish. You can respond right after.
Bad manners.
Let him finish. Let him finish, please.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, it is bad manners and bad bringing up to interrupt. So let me just finish. Now, Rahul,
okay, yeah, let's not get into all of that. Let's not get into all of that. People, manners, etc., etc. No, hang on. Dr.
Rudeness is not a virtue.
Okay, make your point.
Yeah.
Just make your point. Make your second point very quickly. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So second point is, can this BJP spokesperson give me the data, refute Tehseen Poonawalla that BJP politicians are only 2 out of every 100 politicians that are rated by the ED. The conviction rate is 0.5%. We are talking data here.
Instead, you started condemning the ED. And today, instead of condemning Sanjay Raut, Anand Ranganathan, you have the audacity to condemn the ED. Your problem is you don't have a sense of proportion.
Look,
debate Sanjay Raut par hai.
Sense of proportion is not there to cushion corruption.
Okay, now one minute. Let's not. Yes.
Rahul, either you
yeah. Okay. One second. Panelists, please, calm down. Okay, one second. Look, I think a panelist is within his rights to question the credibility of the Enforcement Directorate as well as take a position against Sanjay Raut. That's not a problem. There's no contradiction here. The Enforcement Directorate unfortunately has a low conviction rate. 1 second.
I am questioning the independence of ED.
Yeah, independence.
The credibility of ED. There's a difference here.
There's a difference here. Independence, he says, independence of ED. Okay, this is not about Mr. Ranganathan, Dr. Ranganathan and Sanju Verma. This is about the issue. Has the ED redeemed itself? Let's open this up once again. Before I bring the Shiv Sainik, the second Shiv Sainik, Mr. Jha, into this, I have 5 viewers. I have Kiran, I have Narasimhan, I have Ajay, I have Subramani, and I have Kush. Kiran from Gujarat, go ahead with your view tonight.
राहुल, मैं थोड़ा हिंदी में बात करना चाहूँगा.
आप सर हिंदी में बात कीजिए, गुजराती भी चलेगा, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. बताइए सर.
राहुल, सही में रोज की डिबेट सुन के और ईडी पार्शियल है, इम्पार्शियल है, इस पे अटैक करती है, नहीं करती है, हम लोग फेड अप हो गए. सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया.
Okay. Citizen of India is fed up with Tehseen Poonawalla and the Congress party talking about whether impartial hai, partial hai. They want results. And if the ED is raiding somebody and there are palpable results to be seen, India is happy. Okay. Mr. Narasimhan, go ahead, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm calling from Chennai.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
This is for all the panelists. See, they say that they don't, the ED or CBI, they don't touch the ruling party. They'll only be sent to the opposition party. So if ruling party is also not touched as per their statement, and if opposition party also not to be touched because their opposition, then they call it as a political vendetta, then what is the purpose of ED and CBI? So they are not, see, even if it is for opposition party only, if they are targeting, even for argument's sake, that doesn't absolve them from all the corruption charges.
That's true. It doesn't. You're right.
So that is what everybody is arguing.
Okay. Well, some people have said, viewers, it's a game of revolving doors. Sabka time aata hai. At some time or the other, everyone has a problem. Okay, I mean, if you want to go about it that way, there's logic there too. Ajay calling in from Kerala. Mr. Ajay, go ahead.
Yeah, my simple question to Mr. Poonawalla. Mr. Poonawalla, if the ED is fabricating cases against the ruling party's opponents,
yes, sir.
Why on 2015, Sonia Gandhi and the family case regarding the National Herald, which was not rejected by the High Court of Delhi?
That's a very astute observation.
May I answer that?
That's a very astute observation by Mr. Ajay from Kerala. Yes, Tehseen Poonawalla, before I bring in Shubhranil and Kush, very quick response to that. Very quickly, please.
Very quickly.
They wanted relief, they got no relief. The Herald case hounds the Gandhis.
Yes, but the court, that was a matter to do with income tax. The offences in that, the scheduled offences that were later on added by Mr. Amit Shah ji and the Prime Minister.
Please
allow me. You cannot, please, I request you, please allow me. They were not originally a part of the scheduled offences. They were passed as a finance bill, and I'll go to Constitutional Court. I just want to make one point of view, which is very important. The BJP spokesperson...
Did the Gandhis get relief? Was the case closed? Quashed? Yes, no. Simple question.
Because it was not an Enforcement Directorate case.
Right. So we are talking about agencies.
Please allow me one point. I've been asking you for one line. I just need one line. The Supreme Court, who everyone claims to respect out here, especially a BJP spokesperson, said in a written judgment, not an observation, that an ED director's tenure shall not be extended. 12 MPs from the opposition were suspended, and the ED director's tenure was extended for 5 years. Why has Mr. Modi done this? Can you explain, if ED is not a recruitment agency, why was his tenure extended?
Viewers notice how this debate has shifted. The axis of this debate was Sanjay Raut. We are right off axis. Now we are talking about the ED. This could be a debate we could do any day of the week. We're not looking at Sanjay Raut versus the ED right now. We're looking at the ED versus the ED, or the opposition versus the ED. We're not getting into specifics. Why? Maybe the questions are a bit uncomfortable. Shubhranil calling in from Kolkata. Shubhranil, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Rahul.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to all panelists.
Yes.
So my point is, there might be questions against ED for its selectivity, but I don't think there should be any question being raised for the corruption the leaders have done.
I agree with you.
Because
corruption is corruption, and it's the greatest terrorism that the country can actually be bled by. Okay, Mr. Kush calling in from Bengaluru. The last viewer we are taking on India Upfront tonight. Yes, Mr. Kush, go ahead.
Yeah,
good evening.
3 points. The ED or any department, they want to be fair. But any power, any government, whether it is Congress, BJP or any of the parties, I don't want to name, when they are in power, they use it to their advantage.
Yes.
So my request to all the panelists who seem to be 35 years plus, public is really sick. Please get us departments which are not committed to a government. We want honesty.
We want honesty. Honesty first. Honesty is the best policy. I completely agree with you, Mr. Kush. Wonderfully put. Wonderfully put. Very quickly, the second Shiv Sainik on the show. I want to come to you, Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha, here is a question that I want to ask you. What alleged quid pro quo led the prime accused to transfer 1.6 crores to Sanjay Raut? Why did Varsha Rawat, wife of Sanjay Raut, receive 83 lakhs crores from the wife of prime accused in the Partha housing scam and then suddenly return it after the ED starts sniffing around? What happened? Why is it that Sanjay Raut received rupees 2 lakhs from the scam kingpin every month as a retainer between 2010 and 2011? Can you explain this? Mr. Jha.
See, this is not the question to be commented because this matter is sub judice.
Sir, अभी मामला सब जुडिस नहीं हुआ. चार्जशीट एक सेकेंड चार्जशीट फाइल नहीं हुई है. अभी तो सिर्फ लोग चार्जेस आप you're jumping very you're jumping five steps ahead. Stick to this set. I'm only asking you, do you have any reasonable explanation? Why should a politician be even in a allegedly monetary clinch with a prime accused, a shady character, in a scam? Why should that even be?
how can these allegations be answered whether it has been proved or not proved, or it has been disproved?
Okay.
You have to see the condition and the investigation process.
No one is denied the fact that money came and money went back. No one is denied that.
No. The BJP is selective on what grounds? Let me very clearly say, because I have been waiting for this moment to speak on this television. Now let me say, the selective appearance of the BJP against the opposition can be seen. Now let me tell you a fact clearly. Adani has been allotted a loan of 2,20,000 crores.
Okay, 1 second. Let me come back. Adani is not here to answer the case. The Shiv Sena is to talk about Sanjay Raut. You could have investigated the Adanis if you wanted. I want to come back. No, 1 second, Mr. Jha. I'm not going to allow you to now once again derail this debate.
Let the ED also investigate.
Viewers, we've already established that the ED is selective. That the ED doesn't seem to be interested in BJP Neta. Sanju Verma has already answered that question. She says there has been record seizures, etc., etc. I don't want to go back to that old chestnut. I want to come back to you, Mr. Jha, and ask you very, very simply, why hasn't Mr. Sanjay Raut been able to explain why there was an apartment in his wife's name in the heart of Mumbai? Why hasn't he been able to explain this?
This is scam.
Mr. Jha.
This scam happened in 2008. The FIR has been filed in 2018. For the last 4 years.
Okay, nothing has happened. Last 4 years, nothing has happened. Okay, Sanju Verma, very quick, 30 seconds, and I want to wrap out and go to the next debate. Why has nothing happened over 4 years?
The credit of the investigation cannot be taken at a long period of 14 years.
Nawab Malik tried getting a bail 6 times.
What bail? You don't know the provisions of PMLA. PMLA says that if the PP objects to the bail, a person cannot be granted bail. These are irrelevant things you are saying.
Okay.
If you don't know the law, you should not comment on the law.
Okay, very hot debate tonight, viewers. Very hot debate tonight.
It is stipulated in the Act.
It is stipulated in the Act.
Bail plea, Nawab Malik bail plea.
Yes, Section 45A. You see the provision.
Well, the Supreme Court certainly ruled that bail may not necessarily be granted. So there is a problem there. Okay, wait a minute. Dr. Ranganathan wants to come in, and before and after that, I want to move on. Dr. Ranganathan, yes.
No, very briefly, I think we've ended up mixing a lot of issues. If one were to see what I said initially in my opening remarks, I said, and I'm quoting what I said, according to me, it's an open and shut case of corruption. People miss that. I was asked, is ED independent and above suspicion? I said, no, it's not. And I applaud one of your viewers, Rahul, because he has said what I want you to ask each one of our panelists here tonight. Would they want the ED and the CBI to be independent? I say yes. Let us see what the other panelists say. Now, what is this?
Okay.
Yes, I condemn. Did you not listen? Do you have comprehension issues?
Okay. I'm closing this debate.
I know you were an AAP spokesperson before.
At this heated juncture, I'm closing this debate. Lower everyone's faders. Viewers, you see, we are now arguing about the ED's credibility. That's a question that has to definitely be looked at in the context of these raids, this action that has been taken. Obviously, there are a hell of a lot of people, viewers, who believe that the Enforcement Directorate today and other agencies, like in the past, are being used to selectively gun for opponents. But viewers, fundamentally, there is no getting away from the fact that there are corrupt politicians. Some of them sit in our parliament and they must be brought to account. We have what we have to make do. But at the same time, it doesn't absolve any of these agencies from answering to the charges that are being raised by certain panelists like Dr. Ranganathan and some of our viewers, and very rightly so. Very rightly so. It's only in an open, transparent, balanced debate can we actually get to the root of the problem. There is suspicion against the Enforcement Directorate. It is up to the ED to allay fears that it acts selectively, that it has become a handmaiden or a cat's paw, or call it what you want to, in the hands of of a government in power, while at the same time, politicians who are corrupt, who are being investigated, they also must be questioned so that they become inherently accountable to all of us. Remember, viewers, at the end of the day, in this scam too, who is suffering? Who is suffering? If there were children in the Partha Chatterjee scandal, here it is the poor. People who work all their lives to get that roof over their heads can't be left out in the harsh, brutal sun climate of our country, while others at their expense make money. That cannot be. I will move on.